Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Cry Oneness, a show where you can share your miracles, your songs, your poetry, your music. Welcome to Cry Oneness. This is Joe Avalos, your host, and I'm being joined with somebody from my old fire department crew. But first we're going to start the show like we've been doing for the past 3 weeks. We're going to read Thomas Merton's Love Oneness poem, because this is Cry Oneness, and this prayer so moved me that I'm going to use it every week now. And it's a prayer where you forgive people. So as you read aloud, I'm going to read this prayer aloud to you by Thomas Merton. It's called his Love Oneness Prayer. And when we're praying this together, please just think of somebody you're not too happy with that you need to forgive. Oh God, we are one with you. You have made us one with you. You have taught us that if we're open to one another, you dwell in us. Help us to preserve this openness and to fight for it with all our hearts. Help us to realize that there can be no understanding where there is mutual rejection. Oh God, in accepting one another wholeheartedly, fully, completely, we accept you, and we thank you, and we adore you, and we love you with our whole being, because our being is in your being. Our spirit is rooted in your spirit. Fill us then with love, and let us be bound together with love, as we go our diverse ways, united in this one spirit which makes you present in the world, and which makes you witness to the ultimate reality that is love. Love has overcome. Love is victorious. Amen. So I'll just meditate on that for a little while, a couple of minutes. See how it moves your heart. Okay, and oneness definitely came into my life a couple of months ago. I reconnected with an old friend from the Glumberg Fire Department, and we're just going to use first names tonight. But, this is a person that I was involved with over 25 years ago, and we just reconnected a couple of months ago. He was a volunteer fireman with me, and I had the pleasure of teaching him Firefighter 1, I believe, and for the state of Connecticut. And he was an apt student, and he really tackled life with all his effort. And he was a very serious person when it came to getting things done. And I can remember some of the training sessions where we had the obstacle courses in the rumpus room at the firehouse, and we had it all blacked out and put obstacles in the way. And there was never an obstacle too hard for Brian to get around in his Scott pack and his turnout gear. And he wound up teaching other people, too. And he wound up being a paid professional firefighter in Wilton, and then going on to become a marshal, certified marshal for the state of Connecticut with full police authority. And I was very happy to reconnect with him, but then I found out he has a thing he deals with every day that is probably harder than anything any of us have dealt with in our entire life. And Brian's here tonight to share his story with the hope that it will move other people to have a higher faith in God and how God is working in our lives. And Brian, I want to introduce you. How'd you like that prayer, the opening prayer?
Loved it, Joe. Loved it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it and everything. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. This show is a good way for me to share all the gifts I've received, and you've received quite a few gifts in your life, too, and we all have these falls. We fall down and we get back up again. I know I've been speaking for months about some of my falls, so my falls were self-induced. Yours was not self-induced. You were just doing something great one weekend and you had an accident. So would you like to share what happened and how you got over it?
Yeah,
Or would you like to talk about anything you want to? It doesn't matter to me.
No, first,
anything spiritual is good for this show. Anything, your story, your life. When you're sharing your life, you're sharing Christ because we're part of Christ. So
I was, as you know me best, I mean, I was raised very devout Irish Catholic in Glenbrook. Big family. Joined Glenbrook at 14. You were a patient teacher, very patient. I asked a lot of questions, good, bad, and not too bright, and you were always there with an answer for me. Helped me get over a fear I never wanted to admit to anyone, which was my fear of heights. And you understood it, and you got me through it. And that I am eternally grateful for. And you helped me through a lot of stuff, over the years and everything. And I remember that. You taking the time. You know what I mean? It's you took the time to show the way. It wasn't, no yelling, no screaming. It was, show the way, no questions too stupid, ask it, answer it, I'll show you. And you gave a lot of confidence, to myself. What I'm dealing with, I had an accident working, ended up severely damaging both legs. Over the course of, let's see, it happened, the accident, I think, if I recall, 96. It was worse than what we knew. Had torn everything in both knee joints, all the ligaments and tendons. They couldn't reattach. I was walking in braces.
What were you doing when this happened, Brian?
I was doing a side job. I have a business degree, and I was consulting for a company for a month out west in California. And actually, Jen, my wife, and our son, who was 6 at the time, we were supposed to head back that weekend, and I was asked to cover for someone. I climbed a ladder, of all things, and I was about 8 feet up on a 10-foot ladder, and the ladder snapped. My legs got caught in the rungs, and if you remember, I was very large. My heels could never touch behind me, no matter how hard I could try. Well, it did then, and when I landed on the concrete floor, I broke both femurs also.
Large and physically fit, though, right? I mean, it's not large.
5'11", 230.
Yeah.
I lifted weights every day from 4th grade.
I remember, yeah. You're always in good shape, yeah.
Yeah, so it's ran 5 miles a day, and, it happens. I continued working, didn't have anyone to cover or anything, and worked for 3 days.
You made your own splints for your legs, too, right, because you were in pain? Yeah.
Yeah, nothing was holding the knee joints together. I couldn't stand up, so we put knee braces, but they had the hinges on them, and had someone go get those at a medical supply place, pulled those on, and then taped the hinges shut so I could stand up and walk, and I worked for 3 days on them before I went to the doctor. I've had bumps, I've torn things, broken things before, and, they were a little dumbfounded that I was walking at all. And, I never, how do I put it this way? You remember how it is. I mean, you get hurt doing stuff, so no sense complaining about it. Just move on with it. You'll heal up somehow, some way. The more you complain, forget it. No one takes you serious, and I just gutted it out. And by the time they got me to the right doctors, they had found a lot of nerve damage to both legs. What they called at the time RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy. It's now called CRIPS, chronic regional pain syndrome, is basically where the nerves are so badly damaged that when it turns on, the pain, it locks in and it doesn't shut off. And it's basically, the way to describe it, it feels like even now I lost both legs. The left leg, Monday, May 18th of 98, I lost that above the knee. I had gangrene. Gangrene had set in. They had infections and clots. I had thrown several PEs. The right leg I ended up losing in 5 individual pieces with gangrene. They kept trying to save as much of it as they could. That's a through-the-knee amputation. The final was through the knee. But, I'm blessed to have, Mokusha Jen, my wife. I'm blessed to have her. We just celebrated 29 years of marriage, October 2nd. And I have our son who's 27 now, and I have 3 beautiful grandchildren. The eldest will be 8 on Saturday. That's Mickey.
Wow.
Cora, Fallon, and Connor, but you know me. Mickey will be 8. Patty Wagon is 6.5, and Big Red, my grandson, is 4.5. So I've got a lot of blessings, Joe.
Right. But you've been dealing with all this stuff for almost 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
Since
longer.
you lost your legs? Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and unfortunately getting around two broken hips, which is something when you don't walk, your bones get brittle when you're not using them. And, I didn't know it. So, and I had when I hit the ground, I damaged the spine. So I have a T10, T11 incomplete spinal thing there. So it's that makes things a little bit more difficult. But what I wanted to share was when we finally got the right doctors at Stanford Hospital. I think I told you this story. It was very hard for Jen and I. And you know me, faith has never been a fallback position. It's always been the way I was raised. My faith has been my foundation. Everything I have after that is icing on the cake. So my faith is my foundation. And
we were talking about this. Share about what type of faith you had before this terrible accident, Brian. What was your background with your faith?
Large. Let's see, I would be considered second generation Irish Catholic American. My grandparents came over. My parents were born here. Was raised in Glenbrook. Went to St. Maurice School, then to St. Gabriel's, then to Stanford Catholic, which I think they've renamed to Trinity Catholic. I don't live in Connecticut.
Yeah. I went to my 50th reunion for that a couple of weeks ago. Trinity Catholic.
Yep, our 30th anniversary. Well, that would have been in 2012. Would have been my 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up. I've got 3 older brothers, a twin brother, and a younger brother. And it's faith. Church almost every day. Being an altar boy, so it's a 7-day-a-week Catholic. And every religious holiday and everything. And it wasn't a chore, and it wasn't because you had to. It's a connection. And, it brings you closer when you think how tough things are. You just sit there. I had the doctors at Stanford Hospital. They said, we see you praying all the time. Why don't you just turn around and say, God, take away all my pain? And I'm like, that would be very shallow of me. I know He's given me the strength to deal with it. What I need to do is just, if I falter, is just say, Lord, I know you have given me the strength. I know you're here. I know you're carrying me. You've heard the footprints in the sand?
Oh, yeah, I love that, yeah.
I love, my mom gave me, as a child, I had that in my wallet. I buy them now by the hundred, and, I hand them out there laminated to people. When people ask me, what is it? I said, I know, not because I don't have any legs or feet, but I know when I'm being carried. So it's at the toughest times, I know I'm being carried. I don't take it for granted. I never take it for granted. But I know when the tough times come, I don't lose faith. I don't lose composure over it.
Right.
I get deep in thought, and and it's not even just a prayer. It's a conversation. As I was saying to you with Jen, when the doctors at Stanford, when I was brought in there and admitted, the doctors came into the room and said, listen, this might be too little, too late. We don't know about the right leg. That's bad, but the left leg, we don't know if we can save it. And, Jen got very upset. And the one thing I said to her, I said, since you've known me, have I ever lied to you? And she was like, no. I said, would I? And she's like, no, Mike, everything would be all right. And she had to drive home. We had to take a rental in the East Bay because we were there much longer than, my vacation time that I had, that I was working on. And when she got back, she was driving. She called me up from the car, and she was in tears. She had pulled over, and she's like, I can't do it. I'm like, just, sit back, pray. She goes, I can't. I said, Jen, it's a conversation. I said, just converse. All your fears, everything you've got, just lay it out. Talk to Jesus. Talk to God. I said, the Holy Spirit will guide you. Just let it all out. Talk. And about half hour, 45 minutes later, I get a phone call from her. She had gotten back to the house and completely relaxed and calm. And she just says, everything's going to be all right. I said, I know it will be. And she says, I had a good conversation. And, that's how we deal with it. It's not just praying, but it's conversing.
Right. It sounds like both you and your wife don't just have faith. You have a personal relationship with Jesus.
Oh, very, very much so.
You talk to him like he's a person in your family, not like he's a distant star or something like that. Oh,
God, no. He's in my life every moment of every day. Every day. I mean, the way I look at it, if Jesus ever, he never forgets about myself or my family or anything, or else we wouldn't be here. It's through his will, and God's will that we're here, and his will be done. When Jen and I met, we met, it'll be 30 years, Wednesday, December 9th, 1987. We met, went on a date 2 days later. We were engaged 2 weeks later between Christmas and New Year's. And then we were married October 2nd of 88.
Nice.
So it's, we knew right away, and we count our blessings. A lot of people ask, they said, what happened? Or, how can you make, being Irish, the way you get through things is you make jokes about everything. You make jokes especially about yourself. It's self-deprecating humor. That's, how my grandparents got through the you know what I mean? It's, you have to have that. And, you can't take yourself too seriously. I do take my faith very, very seriously. And I converse And if I don't get any sleep at night, if I'm really uncomfortable, I say a prayer. I don't say a prayer that I can sleep. I just, I converse and I say a prayer. There are a lot of other people out there that are a lot worse than I am. They've got nobody.
You tell me sometimes you don't sleep for up to 3 or 4 days. Is that right?
Yeah, it goes 3-4 days.
Is that because of the pain, or what's going on there?
Yeah, it's a discomfort level, which can be quite uncomfortable. But it's you can't live on pain meds and everything, and it's when it gets bad. Like it's 2 days since I've had some sleep. Last week, I think I was supposed to be on. I ended up passing out for a couple of hours, and I called you back to called you. It was after your show to apologize. I didn't expect it was less than 20 minutes before I had the number pre-programmed in the phone. I was all ready to call, and boom! I finally just passed right out. And that was after, going on almost 4 days.
It's actually grateful I heard you got some sleep that night, because I know you were up for 3 days, so that's a blessing.
Jen was very happy. I was very upset that I missed calling you and calling in, but she was very happy. She was like, I'm like, you didn't wake me. She says, you went to sleep. She says, I wasn't touching you,
So how do you get around now, like from day to day? What do you have to do to get up in the morning, and have special equipment to help you out?
Not really. We have a home. It's a rental. We had our home in Connecticut. We sold the home in Connecticut, and the one we had up in Montana. The one we're renting here is not physically adapted, so I cannot use a wheelchair in it. So wherever I have to go in the house, to the shower, shave, restroom, anything, basically I climb out of the chair and I use my upper body strength, what I do have left of it, to get around, and it's difficult, with the hips and the leg, that's a constant. It aggravates, but every day I make sure I get up, shave, shower, do everything I got to do, get back.
That's amazing. So you're still under your own power doing all that stuff too, right?
Yeah,
that's great.
Dear Lord bless me. There was a reason I think he had me started lifting weights, in fourth grade. I know my parents were not happy with that. But, obviously there was a reason,
Yeah, he gets us ready for whatever we need to go through. Isn't that true, right?
Well, the doctor, Stanford Hospital, it's kind of funny. They didn't want me walking on the legs. They weren't ready to, amputate at that time, and they basically said, I'd have to make a decision. This was in September, and they're looking at immediately, and I wasn't ready to give up. They took my crutches from me, and I'd call someone on the ortho floor to come down and visit me, and they'd come with their wheelchair and their crutches, and I would take their crutches, and they would call it taking my legs for a drag, because I couldn't. It was all upper body. I was dragging my legs, getting them under me, then putting weight, and then moving the crutches forward, then dragging them back under, and so to solve that problem, they decided they would take all my clothes and that gown that they give you in the hospital. So I had nothing.
The Johnny coat.
Yeah, so I ended up having someone come back down with their crutches again, and I went down 2 floors, and it's very apropos, as Jen says, to the psych ward. No orthopedic or neurosurgeon.
South 2, right? South 2, they call that?
Yeah. No respectable orthopedic or neurological surgeon is going to be found on the psych ward. And I went down there to take their legs for their drag, and after 2.5 hours or so, the doctors and nurses found me and said, "You're not supposed to be walking. You're walking around. You're naked." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's your fault. You took my clothes." And they're like, "It doesn't bother." I'm like, "You took my clothes. I'm not giving up." And so that was in September, and I didn't lose. I kept the left leg. They actually put me in a nursing home. Finally they had enough, and they put me in a nursing home right near the hospital. They wouldn't let me go back home.
Right.
I had thrown several PEs. I had gotten.
You shared with me last time you met a friend in the hospital when you did that, right?
I did. I met.
You were like at your bottom, and you said Christ helped you out. He put somebody in your path.
Yeah, they put someone in my life. I met Christina. She was down on the floor. She had an eating disorder. Phenomenal. And they had her sitting in front of the nurse's station, trying to get her to drink that vile stuff. What is it? Ensure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's vile. And she was very, very upset, and I didn't know anything about eating disorders or anything.
So but, basically, you both had a lot of stuff negative going on in your lives, and you were at the end of your rope, and you both met each other. Yeah.
We met each other, and I introduced myself to her because they had her sitting in a chair like you have in the grade schools. The seat and the desk are attached. And I introduced myself, and we started talking, and they let her go back in her room, and I went in, and I sat down, and we were talking and about faith. We're both Catholic. We started talking about it. We prayed together and everything. The next morning, her doctor came up, the one who gave me my psych eval to see if I was just nuts or just Irish, and she found out I was both. And she asked me what we talked about, and I said, I'm not going to tell you in specific, but I said, all we did was talk about faith. She says, well, I don't know what you talked about, but she's my patient, and she's eating, she's compliant. She's not refusing to eat. She's drinking her Ensure. We're hoping to get her on solid foods in several weeks because she hasn't been on it in, months or more.
Yeah.
But would you mind if I wrote a note and a nurse escorted her up here? Could she stay, here with you and your wife while you're going through it? I said, absolutely no problem. And it's actually 20 years this September that Christina and I met, and Christina is basically part of our family. So is her family. Jen and Sean have spent time up in, she's originally from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, has spent time up there with her family, and her family came down to see us in where we're living now, here in Wyoming. And I just
amazing.
spoke with
so
her
you
father.
Didn't know her before this, and you became close friends, and you helped each other heal for years, right?
We get on the phone anytime there was any trouble. It sounds odd, but you can kind of sense. She could sense, if something hit the fan, and I could kind of sense it. If she had a problem, and her disorder, it took years. Mine was physical. You can see it. My scars are visible. Her scars are internal, and it took a lot longer to deal with and everything. And as she was dealing with them, she would call, and we would talk. We would pray, and we would go over what, basically what would Christ do, and we've always been there for each other. She's always been there for Jen and Sean. Every time I went in for surgery, she would wait in my room with Jen and Sean, or she would go down to the the waiting room, outside the surgery. When her father came out to visit her, he went down to her room. She wasn't there. He was there for a week. She was always in my room from the first thing she got up in the morning until late in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
She was there nonstop with us as a good friend. Someone. It's a very deep, Joe. A very deep connection.
We call that a godsend, right? A godsend.
Yeah. She was, and I truly believe my grandparents raised us, and my grandfathers. It was always, if someone's brought into your life for more than 30 seconds and you haven't learned one thing from that person, You gave up a God-given gift that was given to you. It was handed to you. And if you didn't take that 30 seconds and learn one thing about that person, that was a gift that you let out of your hands. And it was just a moment in time that Chris was there, I was there, we met, we started talking, first from an introduction, and then everything went on from there. And not just her, but her entire family and mine are very close, very close. And she's doing very, very well right now. She's got a fantastic job. She's just the happiest I've seen her,
And you too. You have a happy life despite what you're going through, right? You have grandchildren surrounding you, and you have a loving wife. And
I am a very blessed man. I count what I have, not what I don't have.
There you go.
I've got Jen Mokushla. I've got her. I have my son, Shawn Michael. I've got 3 beautiful grandchildren. One of the greatest gifts is having 3 beautiful, precious grandchildren. And I'm here. And the doctors, no matter how many times they said, listen, he's not going to make it, call the family up. I can't tell you how many times, my family flew from Connecticut and from out west to up to Stanford Medical Center because, they had called a priest in, anointing of the sick and everything. I threw another PE, the gangrene went systemic, all that. Everyone would come flying out. But I don't know why, but for some unknown reason, I truly believed that it wasn't my time. I was going to make it through. And was I scared? Yes, I was. But I knew I wasn't alone. I knew that in the time that I was confined to a bed that I couldn't do for myself, that I was being carried. At that point, at the lowest point, the hardest. And, if the doctors went out and scared Jen, all I had to do is just say, look at me. Have I ever lied to you? No. I'm like, don't listen to him. Everything's going to be fine. And everything, what did I tell you? The dear Lord
I'm staring at a line in the poem that we just read, the prayer.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I see is happening in my life. Love has overcome. Love is victorious.
Always.
True,
always.
Right?
Love
and service of your family and your service to your family and your friends and everything. It's outgoing love that heals.
Yeah, definitely.
God is love, right? Yeah.
He is.
Jesus,
God.
I know, is love. There's no separation between him and love. His love's always unconditional,
There's
and he works through people. We can't have him without people for him to work through.
Correct. And meeting you, you got me. You got me through my fear of heights. You got me through Fire One, other courses, anything. You helped me, and I was pushy. I wanted to learn, but you were always patient. You know what I mean with me. I was not what you would call
Well, I would definitely call you one of my best students too. So we're all students and we're all teachers.
Yeah, it's
we're all students and we're all teachers.
Well, you're a fantastic teacher, and got Fire 1, Fire 2, and Fire 3. Was with when I was with Glenbrook, I went into the sheriff's department, went through the academy, went to Fairfield County Sheriff's Department. This is before they changed over to the marshals. That was back in 84. Early.
Yeah. How did you? I know I had a tough time dealing with not being in the fire department anymore when I retired. How did you deal with losing all those positions you love to do because you? Was it hard to get over for a while? I mean, was there a time where you felt the Lord really testing your ability to stand things, you know?
It was hard for me knowing, it's because I was always so physical. I never had, whether a broken bone or torn anything, I was always able to do no matter what. And, not being able to, I never let my job or occupation define me. So if someone asks me, who are you, Brian? Well, it's not I'm a deputy sheriff. This is who I am. I'm Brian. I have Jennifer. I have, this is what I have. This is who I am. The jobs were not, they didn't define me. It was something I did that I enjoyed, and I was able to give back to my community. That was the hardest part, seeing other people in need and not being able to do that anymore. And there are people who have needs now that if someone says, "Hey, Brian, someone is having a problem here. Would you mind talking to them?" I'm like, "Sure, give them my number, have them call me." And then I talk to them. So is there another way? Yes. Do I feel that being able to do as much as I did before? No, but, if I can help one person, but there are so many people that have helped me, my family. I mean, God bless them, every last one of them. My brothers and their wives and my nieces and nephews, cousins, people I was on the job with, between the fire department, Glenbrook volunteer, paid on call up in Wilton.
Yeah. That's a secondary family, right? The brotherhood.
Yeah.
But
it's
police
a
and
brotherhood.
fire brotherhood is very strong,
It's that and law enforcement, because your lives depend on each other. And that's the one thing I learned and I understood. You always had the person you went into the building, the fire with. You always had their back, and they always had yours. You never had to worry. That person, that was a bond. That's a bond that will last forever. I know if God willing, I had legs and I could walk again, and I walk back into Glenbrook or Wilton, that I could rely on the exact same people, and they know they could rely on me.
They surrounded you when you were going through this, when you were still in Connecticut, right? All the people you worked with, police and fire. Telling me that last
when I was at Stanford Medical, a lot of people flew out there. That was Stanford Medical in California. They flew out there. And they were just Jen just called and just said, "Listen, the doctors came in to me in a nursing home on it was a Thursday night, and I had been running a fever. I knew it, so I wouldn't let the nurses there take my temperature. I was just figuring, if I took the antibiotics, I could keep things under control. They wanted me to tell them to amputate the leg, and the way I was raised, you never give up. God is always with you, and you can get. And the doctors told me it's up. We want you to make the decision. We want you. I said, the dear Lord gave me 4 appendages coming in here. I plan on when I leave, this good green earth, of leaving with all 4 appendages. God was gracious enough to give me, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and they came in and they just, it was 4 doctors, and they said, we have an ambulance outside. It's, we can't wait any longer. You're systemic. They had done blood work, and, they had picked up that the gangrene, the infection, was spreading. And I told them that I wasn't going to leave that night, that Jen and Sean were coming first thing the following morning on Friday. And I said, you can have an ambulance wait Friday morning. I said, but I'm not telling Jen on the phone. I said, I'll talk to her and Sean in the morning. Then we can go to the hospital, because they wanted to get me on antibiotics and other stuff, anti-clotting meds, before they did the surgery on Monday, May 18th. And Jen and Sean came. I told them we had our cry. That was the one. One time I cried, right then and there. And then after
I'd be
that,
crying a lot. I used to blame God for my problems, and I was talking to you last week, and you said you never got to the point where you blamed God for anything. You just took it, right?
It's God. I always saw it that God always gave me the strength to get through, because throwing the PEs and not be, what a PE will do to your lungs.
Why don't you say what a PE is, because most people don't know. It's a pulmonary embolism. It's a clot that comes from a part of your body.
It's a clot that comes, from typically a lower part of your body, say from your waist down, and it travels up to your lungs. And it can either go to your PE, a pulmonary embolism, goes to your lungs. You can have one you could throw to your heart. Mine went into the lungs, and you can't breathe. You've got me. It was, I thought, because I was using my upper body for everything. I still had both legs. Because you don't have nerves in the lungs,
right.
my left shoulder blade hurt. I just thought I pulled a muscle. So I never said a word to anyone, got home for Thanksgiving. They kept promising Jen I'd be home, and they kept me in the hospital for, weeks. And finally said day before Thanksgiving, okay, we're going to let him go today. We were back before midnight because I had a spike and a fever and I couldn't breathe, and they're doing everything. And finally the next morning they injected stuff, and I had thrown several PEs.
How many times were you in your mind did you come close to dying with this whole thing going over the past 2 years where you were fighting terribly to stay around,
Oh, Joe, I haven't.
Did you have a cardiac arrest or respiratory arrest or?
I was close to respiratory arrest several times.
Yeah, and they anointed you several times too, right? Sacrament
what was that again?
You had Sacrament of the Sick quite a bit too, didn't you?
I had that numerous times.
Yeah.
And when I could joke with the priest that came in, it was usually a different one. Father Paul, who came in, had retired. I had first met him there. The other ones, if I couldn't talk, they had intubated. I would turn around and write on a thing and everything. I'm like, I'm hope I am not wasting your time and everything.
Yeah.
I think everything's going to be okay. I think the doctors are getting a little crazy.
I'm not trying to get. What I'm trying to say is it's really miraculous.
Yeah,
it
is.
That you have what you have now. And you can deal with everything that you're dealing with now. To me, that's like a miracle. I don't think I could do what you're doing now. I'd be.
I'm blessed, Joe. He will never forget when it's your time. And I truly, when it's your time, it's your time. And I truly think I'll know when it's my time. I think he's going to say, "All right, Brian, enough is enough, and, it's time to come home." And I think my relationship, and again, this is something, 53 years, I'm 53 years old,
right.
My conversations, and again, my prayers, my conversations with God, it's very intimate. It's not distance, it's close.
Have you ever heard him say anything back, or have you got an indication of what he's doing for you? Like a spiritual event where you felt like he was present, not just distant. Which he's never distant. But like my father, he had a cardiac arrest, and he actually went through a tunnel, and the Lord spoke to him, and then he spoke to the Lord and wound up back in his body. Did you have any out-of-body type of things like some people?
No out-of-body things. It was there, they're in the hospital bed, everyone going nuts, all the machines going crazy, everyone, sitting there pounding on the chest and I'm semi-conscious through this, in and out through it, and it's, it's just like, Brian, it's not your time,
right?
And then I just pull out of it, and they're just like, what did you, the doc, and I can hear them. I can't talk. I can hear, they're like, what did you do? And they're like, we didn't do anything. They're like, well, what happened? Why is he breathing again? They're like, we did this, and they're like, okay. And every time between the PEs, the infections, bone infections, gangrene, I had a lot of staph MRSA infections, which are horrendous. I would wish it upon nobody, none of this on anyone.
Yeah.
But I was always, and I believe in my faith that He has always carried me through.
Exactly. It's amazing the faith. It's amazing the faith you have, despite all you've been going through, Brian. It's admirable, and it's what we should all have.
Yeah. Well, it's having, again, as you said, that personal connection. And every day, I still do, a quick, we called it Angelus prayer, 6, 12, and 6. I don't think anyone does it anymore. And I do a nightly novena, but during the day I do talk, and it doesn't have to, I could just sit there and pray. Jen, she does the same thing.
It's great when you can just talk and know somebody's there. That's the best way for me now, just knowing He's around all the time. And that I can't possibly be separated from Him except my will. My will's the only thing that can separate me from Him.
Well,
I'm part of Him. He's part of me,
He is. If He wasn't, we wouldn't be here on the face of the earth.
Right.
God
Without
is
the
love.
Spirit, we're dead.
He's all-encompassing. And, I've had people, that I've been in the hospital with. I've had doctors. I mean, I've got some doctors who have, explaining to them, I thank them for the, they questioned me about my faith, and I said, who do you think, or how do you think you have the skills? Yes, you went to school and you learned, but who do you think gave you the skills to be the doctor, the surgeon, who you are? Who do you think, bestowed the gift upon you and then gave you what you needed to get through to nourish that gift and to be the doctor that you are? And it's some people, they said, well, God isn't listening to me. And I'm like, have you ever stopped, instead of just talking to Him, have you ever stopped and tried listening to Him? Listen for Him, because He is always there. And He
I'm
will
so grateful I have you as a friend, because you increase my faith, because all the stuff you've gone through, it kind of reminds me of the book of Job. It really does. You have stood by Christ through all this stuff without blaming Him for anything, and you've also advocated Him to people while you were sick and laying on your back, trying to convince other people that He's around, and that's an amazing faith, When I was down and out, all I was doing was feeling sorry for myself, and you've pulled yourself through this tremendous thing as a disciple,
Yeah, I didn't do it on my own. I know, and again, when I'm carried, it's the nights I don't sleep. I know, no matter how much discomfort I'm in. I hate using the P word. I know it. I'm being carried. If I'm at my wit's end after 4 or 5 days, of no sleep. I know I'm being carried.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it's just, I'm in your hands. Jesus, I am in your hands. You've trusted me. I trust in you. I believe in you. You've given me the strength to get through all this. You've given me the internal fortitude. In me at birth, at conception. Okay? Just let me use that internal strength and fortitude that you have given me. I can get through I can do it. I know that He's there, and if I stumble, if I fall, He's there to keep me from hitting the floor. I just, that's, again, it's the way I was raised. It's my relationship. Not everyone has that, and I was blessed to have that relationship, and I've had that my entire life.
It reminds me of this poem I shared with you last time we talked. Why bad things happen to good people.
Yes.
We're all broken so that the light can shine in. And God lets us all fall because he loves picking us up. And people who don't understand why they fall will never understand how much God loves them.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you've been doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's God. Well, he's in my life. He in your life. He
used my alcoholism to save me and bring me home. And he came and hit me with a 2x4. He didn't have to come and hit you with a 2x4 because you loved him all your life and you never separated from him. Correct?
No, never.
So
never.
He gets everybody the way he has to get them.
Yeah.
He only gives as much of his Holy Spirit to get you through things as you need.
Yeah,
and it's amazing how he uses grace to pick people up,
He will never abandon you. And if you feel abandoned, it is he who has not abandoned you. If you open your heart up to him, he's there. He's not going to drop you. He's not going to abandon you. And that's something, in my soul. And I've had that. And, I've had doctors, I've had, with traumatic injuries, they get shrinks. You get shrink to death.
I want to read you something else that I wrote about my spiritual friends in the program and what you're going through and everything.
Mm-hmm.
My spiritual friends have something much bigger than anything the world can bring them. They hang out in tribes and share their experiences in life. Their God takes their darkness and makes it light on them and all those around them. They call this grace. It allows them to face and walk through fear and pain, to live each day like it's their last, to love without conditions, to speak kindly and without fear, to surrender quickly and to forgive immediately those who harm them, to walk a steady beam without fear of falling or failing, to get out of their own way and let God's light shine through them even when in distress, to love and serve each other, being the eyes, ears, and hands of their Creator, to share God's pain and joy by relentlessly accepting the struggle they call life. One day at a time, anything is possible. Then they learn how to live in the moment where everything is awesome, where love finally triumphs over fear, in a place called the Eternal Now, also known as heaven on earth. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe that heaven is a space between our own ears when we're in the right spot, and I think you're already experiencing things on earth like I am that most people don't get to experience until they get to heaven.
Yeah.
What do you think? I think this story is about you, your struggle, and everybody's struggle, this poem,
Everyone goes, and like I told you, I will never, ever, ever say that my struggle or my pain that I've gone through is worse than your struggle or your pain or anyone else's, because each person's struggle and pain is their own. But you know what I mean, Joe? And it's an individual, and it's your own. So I can never say I've gone through more than you, or I've had it worse. There are people who've had it a million times worse, than I. I mean, how blessed you are. We have you back. You know what I mean?
Mine was all psychological. Yours is all physical. It's amazing. Everybody gets exactly what they need to bring them to a point where they come back to God, right? So
yeah. It brings you. And I put it this way: it brings a sense of clarity.
Right.
I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
Oh, no, you're doing fine, Brian. It says here's another one. This to me, I just got this a week ago from Richard Rohr, a Franciscan I read every day. Tell me what you think of this statement. If humankind could have known God without the world, God would never have created the world. If humankind could have known God without the world, God would never have created the world. What's that say to your heart?
God is there and God is ever present. Mm-hmm. It's for us to open our as humankind, the way I see it, we have the world's imperfect. Humankind is imperfect. But if humankind had, when God created, if we had realized his all-encompassing love, we would not need the world. You know what I mean?
There you go.
We as humans are imperfect. Everyone living on the face of the earth, whether they want to admit it or not, are imperfect. I admit I am imperfect. Granted, I'm Irish. We all are perfect, but we all are imperfect people. But God is there for each and every one of us, no matter what. And he's always listening. And when people ask me, they said, I've sat here and I've gone through it and I've talked to God, I've prayed to God, and he just isn't listening. And my one question is, have you stopped? And instead of, yelling at God or just praying to God, have you ever just stopped, take a breath, and said, Lord, I am here, I am listening. Have you tried that? He's always there. He's always listening to you, and he's always talking to you. And, at times it's not just us, again, asking and asking and asking, but it's also opening ourselves up and listening for him. You know what I mean?
We got to get to a silent place to do that, right? His little voice is so soft and gentle. It's very hard to hear sometimes. He's very hard to know what to do. Yeah.
He's not going to scream out to you. He's not going to slap you in the head. God is loving. He's going to sit there and gently talk to you. Christina, a perfect example, bringing her back in life, bringing you and I back together. As a fluke, a couple of months. We haven't been in touch in how many years?
25, I think, 24, 25. Yeah.
20. No, it's about 20. I'd say 20. About 21 years.
Yeah. It's 21 in my mind how things
years.
happen now,
But boom.
So we only have 2 minutes left. So why don't you? Is there anything you really want people to know about the Lord and how you got through this that you think would be important for people to hear? We only have a couple of minutes.
Keep your heart open.
Open heart.
Talk. Don't just pray. Talk. Have an intimate relationship. Do not be afraid to be intimate with Christ. He is there. He's intimate with us. It's up to us to open our hearts and our ears and listen in our souls. He's there. And you can be as intimate. It's not up to him to be intimate with you. He's there to be intimate with you. You need to open yourself up. Let him come into your life. He's there with you 24/7.
Let me sum this up, Brian. I want to thank you for being on the show. I only have a minute now, and I want to say, we've been talking to Brian, my friend from the Glenbrook Firehouse, and he's out of state now, but he has a wonderful life, and he has never given up his love for the Lord, despite losing both of his legs and going through 2 years of agony, trying to decide whether to keep his legs or not, and then finding out that he couldn't. And I've always admired Brian. He has a tremendous faith, and he's had it all his life. And Brian, I want to thank you for being on, and God bless you and keep you. You and your wife are wonderful people, and your grandchildren and everything. I understand they're there with you tonight listening. It's an amazing story you have, and it's an amazing story of how good a person you are and how good Jesus is. And I thank you for being on from the bottom of my heart, Brian.
Joe, I want to thank you.
If you ever want to come on again, just call up, okay?
Joe, stay in touch. God bless to you and everyone else. And thank you.
Amen, Brian.
God bless. Talk to you
Bye.
soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.